Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Glitz, glamour, legs, immaculate hair, legs, ghost smooching, and legs. With their powers combined, we are left with one stylish robot. Mettaton has been a crowd favorite ever since Undertale's release, and it's easy to see why. From his pop quizzes to his simulated TV shows, he keeps you smiling through the second half of the game. He's the perfect mix of humor, intelligence, and mischievousness, all wrapped up in one metal box. But those three ingredients aren't the only thing this box contains. No, not at all. Inside this metal shell is one of the most fabulous foes you'll ever feast your eyes on. And that is Mettaton in his more human-like form. You'll dodge a barrage of legs and bombs as your ratings explode through the roof. After all this glitz and glamour comes to a close, though, it leaves a lot to ponder about Mettaton. While I thoroughly enjoyed his character, and it reminded me of a character I once created, I couldn't help but wonder if there's more to Mettaton than we already knew. What was with his heart that we saw during his fight? And was there any symbolism in his character? Before diving into the bulk of things, let's take a step back and cover what we already know about Mettaton. Starting off, based on in-game evidence, it is believed that Mettaton was actually a ghost. If you buy the key from Bratty and Catty, and then travel to the building next to Napstablook's house, you'll find a series of diaries that lay out some of Mettaton's backstory as Napstablook's cousin. He talks about wanting to start a band with Napstablook and Shiren, which he eventually does after the True Pacifist ending. He also mentions how he met Alphys at his human fan club. Alphys then provides sketches for a new body to Mettaton, and these sketches eventually become the groundwork for producing Mettaton's new body. Ghosts in Undertale are able to possess objects, which then act as a host for that particular ghost. You see this earlier on with the Mad Dummy, who divulges a lot of information about ghosts in the world of Undertale. There are two forms that a spirit can have with its host: incorporeal and corporeal. Incorporeal means the spirit has not fused with its host yet. They are two separate entities, and therefore, the spirit can bail from the host anytime they want to. In this form, they cannot be hurt by physical means, and the Mad Dummy implies that spirits can only be harmed by magic. During the genocide run, though, within a heightened state of emotion, the Mad Dummy fuses with its dummy host and transcends into a corporeal entity. This means they are now one being, but this also means they can now be physically harmed. This is essentially how Mettaton exists, so to speak. What is a bit confusing, though, is the order in which things happen for Mettaton. We know that Mettaton can be physically harmed in their second form, Mettaton EX, but in their first form, they have max defense and are impenetrable. Does this mean that flipping the switch was a trigger for Mettaton to become one with their body? Or were they already corporeal before this happened? If they needed this switch flipped to become corporeal, it would make sense as to why this transformation had to take place, and that would be for Mettaton's happiness. But if they didn't, then it doesn't make sense as to why they would want to switch forms to fight the human, as their first form would surely crush them over time. Either way, with a defense as powerful as Mettaton's, it would be hard for a character to get past him in a neutral route. Which is essentially why I don't really understand why Mettaton transforms in the genocide route to fight the character, as their defense goes from 999 to negative 40,000, and thus they are eradicated by the player. Normal monsters can still give the genocide path character a run for their money, and ghosts honestly have the best chance of eliminating the character, so Mettaton had to have taken this into consideration before making the leap. So why did they still do it? Perhaps they believed that being true to themselves was more important than hiding in a shell for the remainder of their possibly short life. Even though Mettaton's original form was impenetrable, the genocide route character may have still found a way to kill them, and Mettaton thought about this in his calculations. It was better to die as a person he wanted to be, and not as someone he didn't. In some way, it is almost like he was a butterfly waiting to hatch from a cocoon, and it was better to see the light of day than never getting to spread his wings at all. And thinking about that, is really depressing. Too often, people live in fear of being who they want to be, since they feel they will be judged by others. While I feel Mettaton's plan was to showcase his new body eventually, in the instance of the genocide route, I think to him, nothing mattered more than going out with a bang, and being his own sassy and eccentric self. I dwelled on this for a while, and this eventually got me thinking that Mettaton sort of represented confidence. He may not have always had this trait innately, but he projected the reach for the stars attitude and was empowered to pursue his dreams. In some capacity, it reminded me of the other traits that the humans had: determination, patience, bravery, etc. And all these traits had corresponding heart-shaped souls to accompany them, which triggered that cartoonish lightbulb idea thing above my head. Now, I'm not saying Mettaton is a human, but he's a human. Obviously, I'm just kidding, but his heart is pretty interesting. Mettaton EX's heart isn't like the normal upside-down white souls that boss monsters leave behind after their death. In fact, his heart is actually pink, according to his map sprite, even though it is represented as white within the fight due to the color palette. It also tends to invert colors within battle, or at least change to a darker shade that is represented by black. This whole setup reminds me a lot of Krang's mechanical body from Ninja Turtles, except instead of a brain, we have a heart. But could it possibly mean that even though his heart was artificially created in some aspect, that it still retains the properties of a human soul? Is the heart pink because it reflects confidence? Or is it simply because this is Mettaton's favorite color? We also have that pink goop that is located in Alfie's lab to take into consideration. Is this pink paint? Or does this have something to do with Mettaton's pink soul that we see? Assuming that this pink soul isn't just a pink power core designed to mimic a human soul. To complicate things further, Mettaton's Neo form showcases a different kind of heart, and that is the upside-down soul of a monster. This could obviously just be overthinking things, as it could just be a heart on his torso. But with as well thought out as Undertale is, I think the symbolism of an upside-down heart wouldn't just be added as a stylish addition. But of course, I could be wrong. All this draws me back to the root of the problem though, which we haven't touched on since the beginning of this video. And that is the topic of ghosts. Just what are spirits in the world of Undertale? In my Kara video, I pondered about the same question. Are ghosts actually spirits, or are they just a classification of monsters? Most people argue that skeletons are also just a monster species, and not actually from a living being. But because there is a lot of talk about souls existing after death, and ghosts are essentially souls, it's hard to keep them completely separate to some degree. Also, with the way that amalgamates tend to vanish and reappear, it could be argued that they are almost spirits themselves. They are indeed monsters, but they are kept in a suspended state of the final moment before death. Because of this, they take on many ghastly forms and have a lot of characteristics similar to what we would expect in ghosts. But if we sway in this direction of logic, that means ghosts in Undertale could just be spirits of monsters or humans who are still present. But this completely contradicts the idea that ghosts are simply a form of monsters themselves. It all gets very confusing very fast. There's also the topic of Mettaton's battery, and how by ghost logic, it shouldn't really even be a necessity since Mettaton could still use the body as a puppet without the need for energy. Even without power, he could still move the arms and legs unless becoming corporeal means playing by the rules of what you possess. Regardless, we've been all over the place with Mettaton as a character, but in summary, we can bring it down to a few key questions that would help solve a lot of his mysteries. When did Mettaton become corporeal? Is Mettaton's heart the representation of an artificially crafted human soul? Or is it simply just a power core painted pink? And last, are ghosts actually spirits in the world of Undertale, or are they just a type of monster? Remember that accepting one way of thinking can conflict with other logic. And that is what makes all of this extremely difficult to sort through. However, I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys and gals have to say on the subject, so please let me know in the comments below. Personally, I'll be honest, I can't say for sure what is what with Mettaton. He's just as mysterious as he is fabulous, and it's hard to separate fact from fiction. Perhaps as time goes on, we'll learn more about him and can erase his shroud of mystery. I really hope you enjoyed this video on Mettaton, and I want to give a shout out to the Regressor for partnering up with me to showcase some of his amazing 3D artwork in this video. If you haven't checked him out yet, you should definitely do so. He creates a lot of low-poly 3D models of characters as if they originally debuted on the Nintendo 64 or PlayStation. I provide links to their social profiles below, so you should definitely check them out if you have the chance. Thanks for tuning in to our robo-sensual discussion of Undertale. If you'd like to join us on our YouTube voyage and help make every moment just a little bit more fabulous, then the subscribe button is just what you're looking for. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and until our next video, cheers. You've made it to the end of the video, but wait, your quest isn't over yet. If you haven't already, you can find our nonsense on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. That way, we can annoy you on any social platform. Endlessly. There's also plenty of Undertale topics on this channel we could use your thoughts on, so feel free to check them out. There's a slew of other videos on my channel too, so regardless, I hope you enjoy.